So while I don't normally like to represent a bank and an oil company, this is the only item of clothing I own that has an Italian flag on it. Hello, how's everyone? Good to hear. Beautiful Irish summer's day, as you can see. It's still quite warm, but wet. So last time I spoke to you, I was like, there wasn't a whole lot of news going on, and then I edited that video together and put it out, and that same day loads of stuff happened. Most notably, the Lotus Emira was released to the world in real, actual moving car guise. If you've been living under a rock for the last, whatever it is, week or so, you might not be aware of it. So it's the first new Lotus in must be well over a decade. But it's replacing Elise, Exige, and Evora. All three of those are gone, and then there's just one car. Hello, bird. So it's keeping the Toyota V6 that we're familiar with from the Evora and the Exige and the Elise, and that will be either with I think it's a 7-speed dual clutch or a 6-speed manual, which is delightful. But also now you'll be able to get it with the Mercedes 2-litre 4-cylinder turbo that's in the A45, A30. Well, no, because I think the A45 engine is actually different to the A35, completely different block. But anyway, yeah, pretty solid engine tie-up to have for a Lotus. So the Geely money from China, we've obviously brought Volvo back into significance, is working well for Lotus. Yeah, I think it looks like a good car. David Pook, you might know from Twitter, he's an automotive engineer. I think he owns a company that tunes A110s. He has his own kind of tuned Alpine A110. One thing he noted on Twitter, quite astutely, which I'll put a picture above now, is the blue launch car that they had. That car is it's on a quite an aggressive suspension setup, and also the wheels have spacers, so it gives it a kind of a more aggressive stance than probably what the actual road cars will be like. But yeah, it'll be interesting because I suppose direct rivals, the Cayman obviously, and the Alpine A110 for the Emira. Obviously proof will be in the pudding, what it's like to drive, and no one outside of Lotus, except with the exception of Jensen Button, who I'll get to again in a moment, have driven it. But yeah, I think I'd have it over both a Cayman and an A110. Again, if it drives as it should, it's a Lotus. Let's not beat around the bush. It's going to be good to drive. It trumps, I think, the A110 because it's got the manual option, it's got the V6 option, and even the 4-cylinder. That 2-litre Mercedes AMG 4-cylinder is probably a more exciting engine than the Renault 1.8 that's in the A110. But obviously the 6-cylinder and the manual, that's a big trump card, which I don't think that car will be around for too long. I think it'll make it to maybe the first facelift of this car, and then it'll only be 4-cylinder engines and only dual clutch transmissions probably, because this is the last combustion Lotus, which is quite sad, but that is the future, which I'll get to again in a moment. But I might possibly have it over a Cayman as well, which I know is a bold statement to make, a Lotus over a Porsche. Lots of trouble, usually serious, which is a bit bullshit in the modern era. But anyway, which I think James May proved as well when he drove an early 90s Esprit across, where was it got? Where did they get kicked out of again? Oh, Argentina and Colombia, Chile. So the point. Anyway, because while you can still get a manual in the Cayman, you're basically breaking the law within the first 2 gears. So if the Emira is geared sensibly for road use, it might trump the Cayman, to be honest with you. And obviously you have to get the GTS to get a 6-pot in the Cayman, and other than that you're getting that pretty dull sounding 4-cylinder boxer, turbo boxer that are in the normal Caymans. But yeah, the Emira, I'm excited about it. I can't wait to hear what it's like to drive. If anyone has one on order and they want to let me have a go of it, I won't say no. Other performance cars, the i20N, the baby hot hatch from Hyundai is out. I can't gel with the way this thing looks. Like a lot of modern cars, it's over styled. It's too fussy, and it's just, why would you buy one over a Fiesta ST? I don't know. Well, at least there's an alternative to the Fiesta, if that's your thing. It'll probably be more reliable and hold together longer. Get away from me, fly. But not for me. Not that I'd have a Fiesta ST either. I think the money you'd spend on either of those cars, because brand new over here, you're looking at, I don't know, 40 plus. There are plenty of options. I know comparing used with new is irrelevant, but you know what I mean. BMW brought out the M240i, the new variation of the next generation 2 Series, essentially. Again, overstyled. The front isn't terrible, the rear is awful, and the side profile is just so, I don't know. Who knows though with BMW? Like, I don't even hate the way the 4 Series and the M3 and the M4 look, the grille. Once it has a plate on it, doesn't bother me. And obviously, you know, not everybody loved the E60. I'm so bad with, after E39 I just lost interest. The V10 era, M5 generation 5 Series. E60? It's E60, isn't it? People didn't love that when that first came out, and it's aged beautifully, so who knows? Maybe, you know, I'll turn around in a couple of years' time and say, well, that 2 Series is actually good looking. I don't think so. Although I must say, the shape of it does bode well, possibly, I think, for what the M2 version will look like. But again, it's just not going to be as good as what went before. That's just the common trend, really, in the motoring industry these days. The Ineos Grenadier, which a controversial car in itself, not really because of, well, one, because, get away from me, fly. One, because it's basically a rip-off of the original Defender. But now the original Defender doesn't exist anymore, there's probably an opening in the market. It looks very like a Defender. It's run by a guy whose name I completely forget. Ineos, anyway, make chemicals, basically. I think they're one of the main sponsors of the Mercedes Formula 1 team, which is weird because this Ineos Grenadier has BMW engines, but that's beside the point. But anyway, the guy who owns and started the whole Grenadier making a new car thing, I can't remember his name, but he was a big proponent of Brexit, and then he's set up the factory for this Ineos Grenadier in France. But yeah, I think utilitarian off-roaders should be really utilitarian. And while the new Defender, it looks well, it's going to sell well, it's obviously a brilliant car, it's just gone too far away from its roots of being a proper utilitarian vehicle. And this one just takes that idea and runs with it. Because now we got to see the inside of it, which is the one thing we haven't seen as yet. And it's just got, you know, big chunky switches up on the roof like a fighter jet, and everything is just solid and chunky, so you can use it, you know, you can find stuff and use it with gloves on or when you have cold hands, and stuff as well, like the steering wheel and like the handbrake are covered in, you know, saddle leather, so good hard wearing leather, and it looks pretty cool. But would I buy one? Well, if I had the means, I might actually possibly, because I think in my perfect dream garage there would have to be some sort of off-road vehicle, and yeah, that could be a contender. But again, will it be better than stuff that's gone before? Well, definitely better than a Defender. Anyone who likes the old Defender, if you haven't driven one, drive one and then see how you feel. Especially if you live in a city and don't go off-road often. If you like your elbows, don't buy a Defender. And then there's a strange bit of automotive. So Radford, which is this new sports car company set up by Jensen Button and Ansted and some other guy whose name escapes me. They're basically going to do a reimagining of the Lotus T40. I can't remember the name of it. Some late 60s, early 70s Lotus, I think, that never actually got to race or something or other. I'm like, I should know the details for this. You can tell I don't do an awful lot of research. But they've bought the trademark to JPS, the JPS livery and the JPS branding, which is John Player Special, the black and gold livery that we know from 70s Formula 1 with Lotus, etc., etc. Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic livery. Black and gold always works, but really. Is that very 21st century, very woke, to be buying the trademark to an old tobacco brand? Like, they could have just ran with the livery, the black and gold. We didn't really need the John Player special bit. They could have even changed it to JBS, Jensen Button Sports Car, or whatever the fuck, or whatever. They could have done something. Radford is the name of the company, so it could have JRS, like Jensen Radford Special. I don't know. Anyway, look, I love Jensen Button. He drove the Emira. Guys, it just seems like a sound dude. But yeah, I don't think you necessarily needed to give someone who owns a tobacco trademark more money. Goodwood was on obviously over the weekend. I won't go into too much details. But one thing that I did notice is Johnny Smith and Richard Porter, Smith and Sniff, as they're probably better known, who have a very good podcast. If you haven't listened to their podcast, stop listening to this and go listen to theirs, because it's much better. It's the #1 motoring podcast, possibly in the world, definitely in Europe and the UK, but and Ireland. But anyway, they were doing some stuff from Goodwood, and one of the things is they did a walk around what was called Electric Avenue, which is a whole very large section dedicated to electric vehicles of all shapes and sizes at Goodwood. But the one thing that really jumped out was how packed the tent was when they in the video that they published, showing that people are interested. And the industry is thriving with electric vehicles. Will I ever love electric vehicles as much as I love the combustion engine? Of course not. It's just not possible. It won't create the same emotions. It's why people still love mechanical watches. There's just more. I don't know. There's more of an inanimate, almost sentient attachment. I don't know. It's hard to put into words, but we just love the mechanical nature. Digital will never be as romantic as mechanical. But look, it is the future, so there's no hiding from it. But that was probably my biggest takeaway from Goodwood, other than I can't remember, was it Justin Law is his name? Put a Jag, was it XJ or 19? XJ or 9, anyway, an old Group C Jaguar sports car, put it into the hay bales, and someone put in an XJ. My name's, I've had a long weekend. But yeah, a few crashes. It was wet. Daniel Ricciardo driving, and Lando Norris driving the McLaren MP4 5B. There was loads of stuff. Go onto the Goodwood YouTube page. There's plenty of content. There's also a lot of great looking car shows going on in Ireland over the weekend, which I knew nothing about. I was working all weekend, so I wouldn't be able to go anyway. But looked good. Looked like there was some thriving, well attended, and some great metal. Go to Touring Car. It's touringcar.ie. Leah Carroll's YouTube page. You'll probably all know her from Instagram. She put up some stuff from a video from the one she was at. Some good content there. But yes, I hope to attend something soon, because again, as I said, I had a long weekend. Shout out to Tyler the Creator. One, because his newest album, Call Me When You Get Lost, is fantastic. Possibly in the running for album of the year for me anyway, personally, but mostly because of this. This being the current collection of his own personal garage. So yes, there are 2 Delta Integrales there. Good to see that a millennial rapper has not one but several manual transmission cars. That's got to be celebrated. I don't even hate his Cullinan. I wouldn't own it, don't get me wrong, but the green Cullinan, not the worst thing I've ever seen. Rolls Royce pull up. What else? Oh, so going back to the whole electric thing. Here's my 2 cents. My 2 cents. So look, the motoring thing is, or the motoring world is now, the electric era is here. I think we do have slightly longer with the combustion engine than people think. It'll live on a little bit longer, but we're very much in the transition period, and it's going to swing more towards electric day by day. That's fine. I'm okay with it, especially as daily drivers. I've been saying for years that daily commuting vehicles, especially in urban areas, being electric vehicles, I'm all for that. Combustion engine cars really only need to be for long distance, or as playthings, in open areas, racetracks. Anyway, but look, international motorsport will have to go that way too. And also we have Formula E and a few other things, but most electric motorsport is really dull. And I was thinking, and it was watching Goodwood spark this off in my mind a bit as well, because there was so much old motorsport machinery going up the hill, and a lot of electric stuff as well. And electric motorsport now being essentially in its infancy, why don't we take an approach to what motorsport was like in its infancy back at the turn of the last century, with the combustion engine, where it was all just about drivetrain. And it's why endurance racing was such a big thing. All racing was more endurance focused. Grand Prix were longer. Everything was just considered about getting to the end, getting to the finish, who could go the furthest distance. So that's obviously one thing that should be a focus of modern day electric motorsport, because the one gripe that people still have, which is becoming less and less of a thing with electric vehicles now, is that range and battery performance are probably the two biggest things that people worry about. And also probably obviously the biggest problem with modern day motorsport and just the combustion engine there is that we've gone way past the peak. So manufacturers can make combustion engines that do ridiculous amounts of power very easily. They're, as far as a combustion engine can be, they're as efficient as they can be, as reliable as they can be, blah blah. So we're way past the peak of the combustion engine. There's no more life really to squeeze out of it. But electric motors and battery capacity are something that needs to be working, or alternative power sources for electric motors. But also the biggest thing with modern day motorsport is the advance of aerodynamics and grippy tires doesn't make them the most enjoyable things to watch. I'm not saying motorsport is dull anymore. I still love it. But the reason people look back at motorsport from back in the day with such rose-tinted eyes is, okay, the racing may not have been incredibly better, but the way the cars moved around, it was all about using the power and carrying momentum. But as I say, so what we need to do with a modern electric motorsport is completely focus on the motors and the propulsion source. Take away all aerodynamics. So I don't know, just make like old schools, make it a cigar tube, suspension, and tires and wheels. Make the fucking tires out of shit we pull out of the fucking ocean. So they have the grip of a fucking boiled egg. You know what I mean? And just let manufacturers develop incredibly powerful electric motors and reliable. Make batteries lighter, make them go further. That's the way electric motorsport needs to go. Forget aerodynamics, forget grip. Just motors, distance, reliability, and make the cars move around. I'll watch that. I don't care what it's powered by, if they're sliding and drifting and balls to the wall like they used to be back in the day. Small update on the Ford Focus. As I said in my last update, I changed the spark plugs in the coil pack and it seemed to be running a bit rough. I hadn't taken it on any particularly long spins after I'd done that work, but then I took it out on a drive then a couple of days after I last did my podcast and took it for an extended spin, and from what I could tell, it felt like an airflow kind of issue. So I had a look under the bonnet and I opened up the airbox where the air filter was, and then I realised and none of the piping was connected. Someone tried to do a bodge job by sticking it back together, but it was terrible, broken. So I've done a little bit of a bodge job myself to kind of bodge the bodge, which has improved it slightly, but it's still not perfect. I'll have to buy or get a whole new airbox and intake pipe and the whole thing, because the one that's there is terrible. Hopefully I'll get one from a scrapyard, but other than that, she's still living on. God bless the future classic that is the Mark 1 Focus. Again, must be worth 8-10 grand at this point, even in the condition it's in. And so yeah, we went a weekend without Formula 1. Thankfully the Festival of Speed kept us drip fed us some content, but after the triple header, no Formula 1 the weekend just gone. But we do have one this weekend, which was in Silverstone, which thankfully the Brits didn't win the Euro 2020, because we have to listen to their bullshit all weekend. Now they probably won't talk about it at all, which is nice. But yeah, it's in Silverstone. I feel the Mercedes are going to bounce back a bit at Silverstone. It's definitely more of a track that will suit their car better than the last few have. That's not to say Red Bull won't still be strong, because they've surprised us at a few tracks this season. Mercedes are bringing an upgrade, so we shall see. But the big thing about this weekend is it's the first weekend of the new sprint qualifying. So normal qualifying is going to be on Friday instead of free practice 2. So there's only going to be free practice 1 in the morning. Then they're going to qualify on Friday afternoon. That qualifying will set up the grid for the sprint race, which is going to be over 100 kilometers, or I think it's, I don't know how long it's going to take them to do 100 kilometers. It's only going to be about 30 to 45 minutes long. It's going to be a short race, sprint race. No, well, you can pit if you want to, but there's no mandatory pit stops or anything. And then whatever the finishing order is of that sprint race, that will set up the grid for the actual race on Sunday. So the race on Sunday will be as it was, and then whoever finishes first in the sprint race gets 3 points, second gets 2, third gets 1 point. I'm not sure if there's any fastest lap points or anything like that. I'd have to double check that. And then the race will be as it normally is. It'll be interesting to see how it works. I don't think the current format really needs to be changed, but it brings more competitive sessions to the weekend. Yeah, we shall see how it goes. But yeah, I'm looking forward to some Formula 1 this weekend. I won't speak any more about it than that. But yeah, that's it now, I think. I don't really have anything else to talk about. So until I speak to you again, stay safe, stay well. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.